Many of you are here anyway today. My name is Owen Moe, and I'm president of Friends of Old Anvil. And we are sponsoring this particular event today. And two of our main purposes as an organization are to encourage historic preservation within Anvil. And there are many, many beautiful old historic buildings in Anvil. And our other major purpose is to highlight Anvil history, to try to develop an interest in Anvil's history among our residents. And this particular event today, I think, will do both, because you'll see historic preservation in progress, and you'll learn a lot about the history of the buildings involved. Now, this particular project is called the Anvil Center Project, and it's the second project in a series of two projects. The first was the streetscape, and this series of two projects is...
Thank you, Dick. It's through his dedicated effort that we've come this far. The AEDA, the Development Authority, began in about 2009. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dick. The Anvil commissioners won a grant in order to do this development and needed to form an authority to oversee it. So we began in that year to do that. You see the results of that effort here now with this fountain area, the plaza, the parking lot, and the facilities to get to it, and that nice wall around it. This, along with this, the township purchased the buildings, the 4 properties behind me here in this half block. And we're happy to say that 3 of those 4 properties are now purchased by businesses, and as soon as they can get things together, they'll start. I think you'll find Splat Studio open today, and you can walk through and see what that will be. All these buildings are undergoing some facade work, and that's what Carol Hickey is really working on. And
now, I love local history. The history of this block, this northeast corner, by just 4 words. And this is what I want you to take away from today. These 4 words, if nothing else. That this corner here was a furniture store. First 2 words, furniture store. The lot with the bright yellow now, that's the cobbler. Furniture store, cobbler. And the last 2 buildings is where the tailors were. So we have the furniture store, the cobbler, and the tailor. That's the history in sum, but there's so much more that's fun and interesting. So let's take a look at our booklets. The first page called From the Starting Block. And I want us to put in our mind's eye a Native American path running right where 422 runs now, and then just natural plants. And at the time that William Penn received this land from Charles II, that's all that was here, a Native American path running down 422. When was it that people first began to settle central Pennsylvania? About what decade? Hopefully you're thinking 1720s. Around the 1720s, people began to settle here, and they were primarily millers. What a wonderful last name. I can't tell you how many millers we've met. Yeah, if your last name is Miller, raise your hand. There you go. We owe it to you guys. So the millers were the people that came here with skills to work with the creek as a resource and set up mills. And the 2 mills are the oldest properties in town. One south here on South White Oak, and one on the far west end of Queen Street, which is the oldest continually operating flour mill in the United States. Right here in Middle Anvil, the oldest continually operating flour mill in the United States. Now, around the 1740s, people could buy the land from William Penn's sons, and there were 2 people that did that. If you look on your first page in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a map from the 1740s, and in the lower left-hand corner of that map, you can note the names Andrew Miller. Remember, this place used to be called Millertown. It's after him. And then the fellow there, Matthias Baumgartner. These were the two folks that bought lots in 1740s that would become Anvil. As a matter of fact, right about other fellow who came shortly after, about 20 years later, was a man named Adam Ulrich and his wife Juliana Ulrich. And there's a street in Anvil called Ulrich Street. If you go down Main Street and you stop at Ulrich Street, look up north, and what do you see? A beautiful farm up there. That's the old Ulrich Farm, built not too long after the 1720s. And the family was settling there, and they were having some great success, and they decided to make some real estate investments. So they bought 167 acres from the Millers, and that included this arm that stretched down Main Street here. So they bought all of the frontage property right along what was then called Tulpehocken Road, from Cherry Street down to Ulrich Street, and they began to inhabit it there. The grandson of the original purchaser of that land, also named Adam Ulrich, he was the third Adam Ulrich, he built a home right here that we're going to be able to see today. 15 East Main Street is one of the earliest properties along Tulpehocken Road, even before the turnpike came through. So you'll want to take a careful look at this summer kitchen in the back, and it's a log constructed house that would have been one of very few in this area. Probably nothing until you've got to 414 East Main Street, that beautiful home right there by Quiddy Park, and not much this way except for maybe some of the log houses. More this way, but over here we have Adam Ulrich's home, and this was about it. Now as Adam got old, he began to sell the property off, and that's where our story begins. He's going to sell the property to who? To a furniture store maker, to a cobbler, and to a tailor. You'll see Adam Ulrich III's tombstone there. It's all in German, probably because most of the language that was spoken around here at that time was German. But let's start now. We have a sense for the basic layout by looking at each of the three lots that Adam Ulrich eventually divided up, and what existed there. If you turn the page to where it says 1 to 11 East Main, you'll see a really fun picture of this very spot as it appeared in the 1870s. But a furniture store and a place where you can get your coffins existed right here on that corner. So you see where there's that short, sharp corner in the picture, it says Peter Forney, that would be just right down here. And then there is an open courtyard, and on the other side of that courtyard, right about here, see it's just not much of a courtyard, right about here is where we have Granny's Cake and Beer Shop. That's right, Granny's Cake and Beer Shop right here in Anvil in the 19th century. Thomas Stein, a historian of the 1920s, was so enamored of Granny's Cake and Beer Shop that he wrote a wonderful history of it that's available. We have it online. I can send you an electronic copy if you have interest. It has all the recipes for Granny's mead, for her mochi, and for the wonderful treats that she would make. She was like the local candy store. She also sold ladyfingers, which were appropriate for funerals. So if people were buying a coffin and maybe using the Forney mortuary served on around the 1880s. Then it became an insurance company right here in the same building. And if we look at the 1950 yearbook at the top of your next page, 1915 LVC yearbook, well, there's an ad for C.E. Shanks Insurance and Real Estate. So perhaps as long as 1915, Granny Forney's shop stood here, and sometime between then and 1920, perhaps, this building was constructed in Granny's place. What happened between 1880, Peter Forney's home, and the 1930s is a little bit of a puzzle, but we get a sense of it from there. There's one right on the corner that could still be Peter Forney's store. It was called the Sheffy Building at that point, and we don't really know too much about it. If you have any information, let us know. But look at the porch posts in this picture. You'll see that there's the green cover, which was some sort of an oyster shop, a fish fry place, popular back then. And then there are three posts that are plain, and some posts with decorative ornamentation on them, right? You also see, just while we're here, I'll note the wonderful streetcar that used to run up and down Main Street here. When they were excavating this spot to make the fountain, they found a 10-foot rail from the streetcar, but it was too heavy for us to bring out today, so you have to picture it in your mind's eye. Look, there's a UFO on the front cover. We've discovered it. This is the electrical source for the streetcar. Not a UFO, sorry. But now look one more time, but notice the decorative ornamentation right next to it. So this is a picture of a store that would have been right around there in about 1915. A butcher shop that was owned by Bill Rowland, and some of his descendants are here today. And Harry Boltz served as the butcher at the time. He was related to Blanche Schaefer and a couple other folks. So in 1933, they took all that down and used this space for a gas station. There's a picture of the Mobil Station, which was owned by the Shearer family. Is anybody from the Shearer family here today? No? They had a wonderful gas station there. Look at the prices. 31.9 cents for a gallon of gas in the 1960s. That's not too long ago. I bet you about that time, in the 1930s, Frank and Mary Aftersmith purchased this building here. And so the storefront closest to this lot, right around the corner there, that's where famous Hot Dog Frank's stand was. If you've ever wondered where exactly was that, that's where it was. And it's soon to be, what is it going to be? Anybody know who's going to move into that spot?
Subway.
Subway, yes, the word is out. Subway is coming. So, Hot Dog Frank's son, Peter Aftersmith, is here. Let's give it up for Hot Dog Frank's son. And the Aftersmiths were such a strong part of us community for so long. They gave their lives to this place. As we can note, in the next property, 13 to 15 East Main, was owned also at a later point in time by Frank and Mary Aftersmith. Let's think a little bit about that yellow property. We noted that this is where Adam Ulrich III settled with his family. There was a well there. And as he was getting towards the end of his life, well, he sold it. Now, a driving question for this property is, what was the purpose of that little tiny, funny-looking building, right, with the big storefront? What could that have originally been? Could it have been that when Peter Bachman bought the property, that he used it to sell produce? Part of the strange phenomena related to Peter Bachman's purchasing this land from Adam Ulrich is that Peter Bachman had a huge farm down by Bachman's Run in South Anvil. He had 8 children there, he had a wife there, a lot of land. Why would he need to buy this property up here unless perhaps he was going to sell his farm produce? And maybe Adam Ulrich had done the same for his family at the farm up here. That perhaps maybe that little building was originally a farm produce store. But we often think of farm produce as being outside, don't we? So perhaps it was a protected farm produce store, or perhaps it was built a little bit later. Architects will date that as about 1810, so that would put it in Adam Ulrich's era. But if they're not quite right, it's all guesswork, right? Then it could be that it was built originally as a cobbler shop. So looking at the history here, but as early as 1844, the land was sold to Susanna Graybill, who was quite advanced in age at that time, but she was buying it for her son, Peter Graybill, who the censuses tell us was a cobbler by profession. And many family histories online will indicate Peter Graybill as the individual who took into apprenticeship several of the local family members here in the last 100 years. So Peter Graybill was a very influential cobbler, and that he trained a lot of people, and he used that little store undoubtedly as his cobbler shop. Perhaps it was originally a cobbler shop. And it's wonderful that the Graybill family resided in these properties for more than 100 years. So after Peter had passed away, then Peter's son, Samuel Graybill, owned the property. He was not a cobbler, but he rented it out, the small house, to some cobblers. And if we turn the page, you can see some of the fun evidence behind that. The top of the next page is a picture of a beautiful old car driving by that little building about 1915. And when we look closely at the sign, we can discern that it says something, Rist Giandon, something, and then shoemaker repaired while you wait, it says. Well, if we look in the LBC yearbooks from 1915, sure enough, there's an ad for Moritz Giandonato, and he had his cobbler store right there. After that was when the Heilmans and the Detweilers came in. They were all renting from the Graybill family and establishing their shoe shops there. The Detweilers, Clayton Detweiler, ran the shoe shop there until the 1930s. So the predominant use of the space was as a cobbler shop, a shoe shop, up until the 1940s, when Frank and Mary Aftersmiths purchased the properties, both of them, and they rented out the small house to Jeanette Schneider's Candle and Gift Shop. If you were to zoom in on the picture on the bottom of that page, you could see it says Candle and Gift Shop. That was run by Jeanette Schneider. How many people here remember Jeanette Schneider's Candle Gift Shop? A couple of us do. Okay, good, good. Well, there it was. All right, well, let's just do one more of these. All right, well, let's just do one more of these. The properties at 17 and 21 East Main Street. This was owned by the Bodenhorn family for more than 100 years, again. And the Bodenhorn family were a family of tailors. Let's start at 17 East Main. That's the purple building you'll have a chance to see in a second. Henry Bodenhorn was the son of the original tailor who lived at 21 East Main Street. And Henry built that store with a big window on it for the tailor business that the family ran for 100 years. So you can imagine when you look at that big window, beautiful clothing hanging there for sale for Anvil residents and passers-by. Let's see. After the 1900s, the space was rented out to a variety of people. You can see some of the details there, including Isaac Long's Insurance. And so many people talk to me about Isaac Long and what a character he was. His name was I Am Long, and some people said he should have been called I Am Fat. But we won't go there. I Am Long had an insurance company there for a long time, and then it was rented to the Heitefus family. Again, it was insurance until the college built it. Finally, let's give some consideration to 21 East Main Street, again part of the Bodenhorn family. This is where the Bodenhorns first settled. It's where they first had their tailor shop as early as the 1830s. They built that huge home because they had a huge family. John Bodenhorn and his wife Magdalena lived there until in 1870, John Bodenhorn was killed in a tragic accident that's interesting to read about. So let's read this newspaper article and on the column there. This is from the Harrisburg Patriot News, because the Lebanon Daily News didn't exist until 1872. So just 2 years before that, there was this frightful railroad accident. It says 2 persons instantly killed. The passenger train on the Lebanon Valley Railroad, which leaves here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, ran into a 2-horse team at Anvil, 20 miles east of this city, and killed a man named Bodenhorn and his grandson, who were in the wagon at the time of the terrible collision. The horses were killed, and one of them was thrown a distance of about 100 yards. The wagon was thoroughly demolished. Mr. Bodenhorn and grandson were residents of 21 East Main Street, Anvil. These are all the particulars that could be gained of the accident last evening. Today we shall probably be able to learn where the awful responsibility of the death of these unfortunate persons lies. And in the next day's edition, it talks about the engineer, just a little brief sentence claiming that he rang his horn as loud as he could. But for some reason, the Bodenhorns were killed. And perhaps if you think about the time before they had the guardrails, perhaps they were ready to cross and waiting for the train, and the horses got confused and ran into the way. Who knows? But you also see a picture of young Reuben Bodenhorn's tombstone there, just 14 years old when he was killed. Henry, as I said, John's son, built the tailor shop next door to display some of the family wear. But probably the business was run out of 21 East Main Street in its earliest formation. Then Sylvester Bodenhorn lived at 21 East Main Street. Always a lot of people living in that house. And in 1928, there was a wedding there, which I thought might be a nice way to conclude our time together, just to read about this beautiful wedding that was held by the Taylor's family at 21 East Main Street. So I'll read it on the last page. It says, "A quiet but beautiful wedding took place Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock at the home of the bride, 21 East Main Street, Annville, PA, when Miss Ann Jeanette Bodenhorn, daughter of the late Mr. and Mrs. Sylvester Bodenhorn, became the bride of Richard Earl Longacre, son of Mr. and Mrs. Robert M. Longacre of Shirley Street, Lebanon. Promptly as the tall grandfather clock, an heirloom of the Bodenhorn family, struck the hour of 10, the bridal couple, unattended, appeared at an altar arranged in front of the clock, where they were united with a beautiful ring service, Reverend Dr. K. Otis Spessard officiating. The bride was charmingly attired in a gown of taupe velvet. Taupe is like a tan, so she's not wearing white. It's a different era. With a hat to harmonize. Remember, these are the Taylor's families. I bet she just looked fantabulous. And carried an arm bouquet of yellow sweetheart roses mixed with delphinium. Only the members of the families of the bride and bridegroom witnessed the ceremony. Immediately following the ceremony, a wedding breakfast was served in the home to all present. An image for you to carry with you as you walk through 21 East Main today. Such a wonderful emphasis on families and what's important, right? And let me just close with that you might read this and say, how petty. I don't believe they put that sort of stuff in the newspaper. But isn't it wonderful that we are a community that emphasizes family, that emphasizes our community, and that gathers together today for events like this. So I just think that this turnout is a wonderful demonstration again of what a great community we live in, and we greatly appreciate you all coming. So thank you very much. Now you can give up your applause for all my hard work. We'll guide you through. You can see some of the unique construction of that place. But let me let you go now to explore. Thank you for your attentiveness, and enjoy.
Is this what they said is going to be the subway shop? Which one's the subway shop?
Already paid for the facade work, and we were buying. This was the last property for sale on this. Done. So just wants to buy it, and they can turn it any type of business they like. So the last property.
There's a surprising. The attic up there, huh?
Just give me a card that I can call you.
This is for summer.
Oh, this is for summer. You got it.
This is spring.